Has Sony completely annihilated Canon? What's cracking everyone, Amy Crichton here, and in today's video, Sony has released another camera, the A1. What the heck? Where did this camera come from, Sony? Oh my God. So we have another camera released, the Sony A1, and it is looking mint. So who is this camera for? Personally, I think this camera is for still photographers. Because of that 50 megapixel and the 30 FPS, this thing is a beast and it's never been done before. Now, obviously the Canon R5 is a clear competitor to this camera, and this Sony is just packed with features. Now, the one thing I'll point out from the get-go is that the Sony is much more expensive than the Canon. So yes, Sony is gonna have a whole bunch of features thrown into it, but the Canon is still great value for money if you are a stills photographer. It's just that overheating 8K buffering that is gonna cause a real problem. All right, let's run over some specs. So the Sony A1 is a 50 megapixel camera, 30 FPS. Sony are claiming 15 stops of dynamic range, 0 blackout, real-time autofocus, anti-distortion, and flash sync. Those are the main specs that kind of stood out for me, as well as the bird and animal autofocus. But I'm not a stills photographer, I'm a videographer, a cinematographer, so while I appreciate these specs and we do dabble in a bit of photography, I'm more interested in the video side of things. So when it comes to the video specs, you're looking at 8K 30 frames a second, and that is in 10-bit. You have 4K at 120, that's also in 10-bit, but you will get a slight crop of about 10%. You get S-Cinetone color space, 15 stops of dynamic range, 5-axis built-in image stabilization. Sony's also claiming that it has a heat dissipating structure. So that means that obviously it's not going to overheat as much as the Canon R5, you would want to hope, so you can get more shooting time out of this camera. They are saying that you can shoot the 8K at 30 frames a second for 30 minutes, but Sony has also said that those time frames were exceeded in their tests. So I guess it will depend on your environment, if you're in a really hot day or if you're on a winter's day, things like that. It has dual card slots, so the same as we've seen in the Sony A7S III, the C-Fast Express Type A and the normal SD cards, full HDMI, as well as some cool Wi-Fi and Ethernet ports for your stills photography. It has no mic in on the camera at all, so it's totally relying on the digital interface with the hot shoe on top of the camera, which means no cables. So let's talk price. For the Sony A1, you are looking at $6,500 US in comparison to the Canon R5, which is $3,900 US. Now, there are a few differences in these cameras, and I think because Sony has launched this with, you know, all guns blazing at Canon, we should compare these specs. So let's just have a look at these specs. I've got them written down here. So the Sony A1 is 8K at 30. The Canon R5 is 8K at 30. You get 30 minutes with the Sony. Probably don't get that much on the Canon if, you know, with all the cooldown times and all the dramas that I've seen with that. I think it really depends on your situation of where you're shooting and how you're shooting for how long you get out of the R5 in 8K. Both cameras do 4K 120. Now, the Sony A1 has a tilt screen. The Canon R5 has a flip screen. So whether that's a deal breaker for you, you can make up that decision if you want to be able to flip it out for vlogging, things like that. So when it comes to audio, the Sony has no mic cable, as I mentioned before. It is completely digital with that hot shoe. And the Canon R5, obviously, you can have that analog wire going in. The good thing with the Sony is that you do get dual recording, so you have a redundancy. Whereas with the Canon R5, you only have that one slot. Now, what are you getting for the price? So the Sony A1 is $6,500 and the Canon R5 is $3,900. Now, Sony, you're getting 50 megapixels, Canon R5, you're getting 45 megapixels. So what's the point? Why would you pay almost double for the Sony? Well, I'll tell you why. No blackout, that 30 FPS, 50 megapixel has never been done before, and props to Sony for bashing this one out, because that this camera sounds amazing. Not to mention the 8K at 30 FPS. Now we are yet to test this out and make sure that we do not have the same issues as the Canon R5. But I think Sony's a little bit smarter to come out and say that it does have a recording limit of 30 minutes. And then if we can exceed that, then that's a bonus. So that's it guys, I just wanted to run you through this new camera release from Sony as soon as I could to get you guys up to date with the specs. If you did like this video, please like, subscribe and comment down below and let me know if you like the new background. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.